Second item is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the committee agenda. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to our discussion items. The first, which is 3A, the CISO quarterly report, which is on the screen.
I just sent Brian another link. I don't know. Okay, so here's our quarterly report. As you guys know, I do send a monthly report to you guys each month. You're welcome to ask me questions, and just kind of compiles those monthly reports. You guys know what our mission is. I don't want to repeat myself. If you don't know what my mission is, you can be sure to ask me or send me an email, okay? Or text me. So here's a rundown of our projects this year. So far, we've connected the Taylor Run wastewater plant to our network. That's done. We upgraded all the access points, all of our network switches. That was about a year-long process. That's finally been completed. You're always going to see workstation upgrades in progress because that gets done throughout the year. We're in the process of finishing up the multi-factor enhancements. We're working with the police now, and so far I have Brian Travis on board with it. The other ones I need to get the other council members done. We're still planning mobile device management out. We just haven't had time to do this, and that is the ability to manage our iPhones and handhelds to the parking office, and even laptops. We just haven't got to that project yet. Just tomorrow, we're working with Genetec to do a site survey about the parking garage cameras down at Chestnut Street, maybe some security enhancements. And then in the fall, we're going to install a server cabinet down at Public Works and try to upgrade the network switches down there into a better environment. We had no unscheduled events in the past 3 months. That's great. An unscheduled event is something that is down, something that failed that we were not aware of. So that's really good. Now, these are not help desk tickets. These are not projects. These are other things that come into the IT department outside of those things. You can always ask questions about any of these. I'm always available. I think Brian's here. The ones in yellow I'll highlight. So in April, we did some upgrades, some minor changes in programming in the council chambers sound system. More on that later. Public Works was having a problem with the lighting system down at the Westchester Public Library. We helped them troubleshoot that. We're working with BSGI, that's Berkshire. They are our Genetec provider. They provide all the security for the building, all the cameras, the access points for these fobs and so forth. That contract is kind of passing from the police to IT. We're kind of handling the day-to-day management of that. That service contract ends next year, so we're working on getting a new service contract for 2025. I'll go through June real fast. Some exciting things here in yellow that we're working on already is I am working with a provider to identify some upgrades for the Borough Council chambers in reference to what we're doing here and trying to expand some of that if we can into room 232 and 240. So you have some more streaming options and recording options in these other rooms. The thing I'm most excited about here that's in yellow is we're starting to do some penetration testing in the network. This is you pay white hat hackers to come in and try to penetrate the network and see how secure our network is and give us directives on what we can do better. And that's something that I'm actually budgeting for next year so we can do it on a regular basis. I think that's important. The security is always changing and we need to stay on top of that. One last thing in yellow is, again, working on that service contract with BSGI. We're also trying to identify some additional security we can. Am I too loud, Ramsey? No. I'm sorry. I am talking loud. I'm so excited. We're trying to identify some security upgrades that maybe we can present to the borough manager and the police for the borough building as we go through the new contract for next year. Help desk tickets, these are all the day-to-day tickets that come in for anything from a printer not working to phone's not working, or they just need help with a piece of software. So far, 698 of those this month, or this year. Wasn't that busy this month. But I always say that's only about 70% of our help desk tickets. The other 30% are not, they come walking into our office begging for help. Now, what are we to do? We say, put a ticket in or follow them. I've trained Jeff. Go help them. Don't demand a ticket be put in. So, but it gives you an idea how many tickets we do. One of my favorite slides you guys always know is our cybersecurity solutions. The first one you here see the number 410. This is the automated advanced threat protection that's kind of monitoring email coming in, other messaging, and stopping it and reporting it to the IT department. And then we follow up and make sure that it didn't miss anything. The second one is my favorite. This is the self-reporting. This is staff reporting suspicious messages to the IT department, at which point we can investigate and remediate. This one is account takeover attacks. This is when someone tries to get into one of our accounts and we are alerted by either our ATP provider or Microsoft. That happened last month. Nothing was, we got notified that someone was trying to get in one of our accounts from Canada and Texas, obviously using a VPN solution, but that was stopped. Doesn't happen very often, surprisingly. Security awareness training. This is the monthly phishing tests we do. Each month we do a monthly phishing test to staff. And then planning and review. We constantly are reviewing our planning, staff training. I consider a Cybersecurity Friday, a Cybersecurity Daily part of that. Breaking news, there's some news. We had a nice article in the local about the sound system and the enhancements in the council chambers. And then earlier this month, a State Tech magazine asked to talk to me, interview me about cybersecurity and disaster recovery. They're doing a big issue about that in local government. So be prepared. I'll make sure I forward that exciting issue to you when it comes out later this year. They promised me a nice spread, so I'm very excited about that. What I will say about this Cybersecurity Friday, everybody gets, what I put in the middle here is, I think investing in HI, I actually coined that term. Okay, Barracuda told me I coined that term. Because all this AI talk on, artificial intelligence, I really believe in HI, human intelligence. No one ever talks about human intelligence when it comes to cybersecurity. It's very exciting, isn't it? I see a lot of laughs in there.
I'm going to borrow that from you, by the way. HI, human intelligence. I love that.
Well, it's funny, Brian. I talk at all. I attend a lot of seminars. I talk at I attend conferences, and very, very big member of Barracuda Insiders Club. I'm very engaged. And I think that's why State Tech magazine reached out. And no one ever talks about human intelligence. They all want technology to stop everything, and it just can't. It just can't. So it's a mix. So the reason we do Cybersecurity Friday is to invest in our staff through communication, collaboration, and empowerment, empowering them to be an active part of protecting the organization. And that's what we try to do. And it's a great read on Friday mornings at the office. Work's getting done for about an hour, I think, because everybody's reading it. Something we started in April was the Cybersecurity Daily YouTube channel. Every day, Monday through Friday, I post a 2 to 5 minute video covering a topic. It's themed during the week. So it's something that I just trying to push out more good, fast information. It's proven very popular, just saying. Ongoing training. Last month, Jeff did attend a 40-hour Microsoft course on PowerShell. That's a really important program. He did a great job with that. Our 2024 budget's in line as far as I can see. Already working on the 2025 budget. I have capital projects I'm thinking about. One is the penetration testing. I want to build that into our cybersecurity plan and do that quarterly. And as I said earlier, some new projects I hope to enhance and improve the audio and streaming, the recording, not only in the council chambers, but if possible, expand that in the room 232 and 240, sometimes to our boards and commissions meetings that I think would like to make their meetings more available to the public and just important topics being discussed. So I'm working on getting that information, get quotes and so forth. I can present that. The way I have my budget looked at right now, I have like a $21,000 increase for next year, but I'm still working on it as I get some of these numbers to come in. That's it. Any questions? Any?
I have a question that's a little off, but if you're taking the cameras and whatnot off of the police, I want to ask you.
Well, it's a collaboration. Like we're working together.
I know. All right, if you are taking that little piece that you're doing that is instrumental, I want to ask you to do some research into placing cameras around public restrooms that the borough owns and possibly could build, and what would be legal, what would be accepted by the public, and what would be helpful, because I think those are sort of three very different things. I would like to see, say, public restrooms made available in the parking garages, but that's a big wish. But there are public restrooms in our parks that are not always the safest areas, and different locks and whatnot. And if we can have cameras installed in a way that will be helpful, I think that could be beneficial to the entire community. But we need more information.
That's a good question and good ideas. There are cameras. The police do use these for criminal investigations. They put cameras up where they need them on the fly. So that type of technology could work in the parks if we wanted to invest in that. That would be outside of this building, you know what I mean? But there are solutions of that nature that are out there. It's just a matter of information and choosing to invest in things that are important. But that is possible. And with these cameras in here and the security, it's so much technical that's why IT is kind of taking it over to take that, alleviate that from the police of having. We had 8 cameras down yesterday. The police didn't have to worry about that. We found that, we were able to get that fixed. So it was trying to help them by, being more engaged in the technical end of these things.
I think
I like
that's
the ideas with the parks.
hugely beneficial. The police have their job, and the technical part of it is your expertise. So it makes sense that that's in your wheelhouse. So I just want to know your take on branching that out. As our community grows and our downtown becomes more of a destination, I think we're going to be required at a certain point to provide public restrooms. And I know that there have been issues with public restrooms in the past inside of private establishments, and I would want them to be as absolutely safe as they could possibly be if they are borough.
Cameras inside restrooms are very
I know. And
very
that's
challenging. Even like Disney World doesn't do that. They put cameras outside.
right outside.
To
So,
track activity
yes.
coming and going. But yeah, there are solutions out there that you can make that happen.
How would we, if we wanted to investigate that further, and perhaps even make that a budget item to, especially around our parks, to add cameras on the outside or wherever it's feasible? What's the process for including that as an item?
Have the borough manager direct me to do that,
Thank you.
and I would begin investigating.
I have a couple questions too, real quick. Since Cybersecurity Daily has been out, have you had a lot of feedback or anybody, viewing? I mean, when I catch the headlines, if I'm interested, I'll actually explore it further, but I'm just curious to see what kind of traction you've gotten on it.
I have more so, unfortunately, from exterior, like the PA Chiefs Association, Barracuda, some other organizations. I don't know if how much activity I'm getting inside the staff. I already annoyed them enough with the Cybersecurity Friday, and I put links to all of that week's episodes on there. But I can't, they'll be sending them an email every day with it. I think I'm already I'm at the edge of annoying them. So I probably get 20 or 30 views on each one each day, which is pretty good. It's a brand new service. If it helps anyone, that's great. That's why I keep it 2 to 5 minutes, because they're really short. They're really short. And that's hard for me to be really short, as you know. I want to keep going, but I can't all the time.
Yeah, no, thanks. I was just curious. And then we had some audio issues last time we had meetings. I was wondering if any of these planned items you had were would address future, or whether you've identified and isolated the situation, or.
So far, everything's working fine. The audio issue, I don't want to point to anyone in particular. There's a button up there on the main one that's for muting the other members if they get out of control. That just got pushed accidentally. That wasn't a technical issue. I was so grateful that it wasn't. I gave him I gave Pat a high five that night. I was so happy it wasn't a technical issue. One of the improvements that I want to do is take the audio from the remote participants to the front. That's actually much harder than you think it is. Want to add another camera in here? That'd be nice, done from the front at the audience. So these are things we're looking at, and some more streaming options, and expanding that into the other rooms. If there's something that I want to present that to the borough manager, and present that to you guys as part of the capital budget, and see if there's interest in it.
Yeah, that was with the last question I had, because I saw a couple 2025 items up there, and it kind of got me thinking. And Ms. Vaccaro had a question, I think, earlier this year about if we're improving streaming or, services, is there any way to improve or add an interactive component so that we could get more participants that are outside of the room involved?
As a result of COVID, there are solutions through WebEx that are specifically for local government meetings. Don't know if you want to go down that road. That would make the engagement of outside participants easier to moderate and participate in. It provides the ability for, as council is voting, they would actually hit a button and vote, and you would see it come up on the screen as the votes are coming in. It's kind of cool. So there are solutions out there. We just haven't engaged in that, but it's certainly something that might warrant a 2025 look at.
I think it would be worth us to evaluate the feasibility and whether or not we could execute it or not. If it's going to create an issue, we'd want to know what those issues are. If there's known issues, we'd want to know those in advance. But it's something I think it's worth looking. It keeps coming up, so I think it's worth looking into.
I would suggest the financial is not an issue. These things are usually fairly inexpensive. Be surprised. It's more of moderation. Like right now, you have IT doing it. You do it anyway, but you would do some rules and policy and procedures and things for not only the community, but for staffing and how we do these things. But it's more of a vision thing than it is a cost thing, I think, and a desire.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? I just wanted, is Mr. McGinnis on the line?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. I mean, I sent invites to him and Bernie, and I sent it again. Send a technical thing on your side. I'm not sure.
Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to 3B, which is the employee healthcare benefit update, which I believe John Krauser. Hello, John.
Good evening. John Krauser, HR Director. Just want to do a very high level brief overview of our current plan and future plans for the remainder of the year with the borough manager's assistance on this one. Our current plan, we have a qualified high deductible health plan for all of our employees, or all of our eligible employees, I should say. So just a very, again, high level description. Some of the pieces to this plan are that all medical and RX claims accumulate towards a deductible. That deductible is $2,000 for single employees, $4,000 for family coverage employees. IRS minimum annual deductible right now is $1,600 for the individual and $3,200 for the family. With family coverage, if you do have a family member that is, most of the family's healthy, but maybe one individual has health concerns, the entire 100% of the deductible has to be met either by that one or jointly before that benefit can kick in to begin paying all additional medical costs. On our current plan, preventive care, such as physicals, mammograms, things of that nature, are 100% covered at this time. So as far as our high deductible health plan does qualify us for an HSA or a health savings account, which we do take advantage of. It's essentially a bank account, or not to insult anyone's intelligence, of course, but the high deductible health plan does allow us to provide that HSA for individuals. We contribute 75% of the deductible in the amount of $1,500 for single, and then $3,000 for family coverage. So we're covering about or exactly 75% of the cost towards that deductible. Some of the key components of the HSA is that it is employee owned. So year over year, it can go up to the legal IRS or the IRS limit, which is $4,150 for individuals, $8,300 for family members or for family coverage. And that's just current for 2024. In 25 and so on, that number will typically increase. The other benefit to this is that it is pre-tax. So you'll see that any contributions that the borough puts in, which we do annually at the beginning of every year, we'll put in either single or family coverage amounts into the HSA. That's all done pre-tax. And if the employees choose to go through payroll through our HRIS and submit contributions on their own up to the legal annual limit, they can also do that pre-tax. And again, borough covers at $1,500 for single and $3,000 for family annually. Some of the highlights of the plan itself: preventive care services are covered at 100%. Office visits for PCP is 100% after the deductible is met, and specialists are covered at 100% after the deductible is met. Additionally, prescription drugs, whether it's generic preferred or non-preferred, that's $5 after deductible. Brand preferred and non-preferred is $20 and $35 respectively. For ER visits, they're 100% covered once the deductible is met. Same for urgent care, inpatient care. And we've already gone over the annual deductible, but the out-of-pocket maximum for our plan is $3,500 for individuals and $6,580 for family coverage. The next thing I'll go over the qualified medical expenses. While it's not a exhaustive list, there are several qualifying medical expenses that can be covered and you can use your HSA dollars for. And then there's also others such as burial expenses, cosmetic surgery or cosmetics, things of that nature that are not covered under the HSA and does not go towards the deductible. So while this is a rather extensive list, it is not exhaustive by any means. A little bit on the
Can I ask a quick-
demographics.
Hey, John, can I ask a quick
Okay.
question?
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that 75% of the deductible costs were covered by the plan.
75,
I think it's
we
the
put
premium?
75% worth of the deductible. So if the deductible is $2,000 for a single person, we're putting $1,500 into your HSA at the beginning of the year.
Oh, you're loading the HSA. Okay,
Right. And
got
then
it.
the HSA
Thank you.
money can be used to cover those expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So a little bit on the demographic data. We currently have 280 roughly, because obviously it fluctuates throughout the year, but 280 total individuals that are covered under our plan right now. That includes 87 children, 49 spouses for a total of 136 dependents. We are covering 122 full-time employees, along with the bid and the public library for a total of 144 eligible employees. One of the things that I did note in the age demographics. So you'll notice that it doesn't do the typical bell curve. It's more of two large humps, and paying attention to those two peaks is going to be rather important when it comes to healthcare. We do not measure for our health plan whether or not you're a smoker. So really the only thing that they're going off of is the age demographic. That's the primary item that they focus on when it comes to pricing for us right now. That can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. But the ages that are there does tell a little bit of a story that we do have a little bit of an older working force. And that can be a good thing for us. It can be a bad, experience-wise, it can be a bad thing when insurance companies are looking at it. So, but speaking of price, I want to turn it over to the borough manager for a moment to talk a little bit about the claim fund history.
Thanks, John. I prefer the word a mature workforce. Just kidding. We're insured through the United Healthcare Network, which is pretty common. It's one of the big four healthcare companies in the country. And we are with a health trust, which means our dollars go into a pool along with a lot of dollars from other customers like us. And our experience, our claims are paid out of that pool. So we're in a health trust, and we are going to, the reason I'm talking about the dollars is the instructions we got from council were to test the market and see if we found a better value out there for the borough. I can comfortably speak for the employees who use the health plan that we like it. Our premiums that we pay, that we contribute to the health care are very low. It's 2% for all employees who are not in the police union, and it's 0 for the personnel that are in the police union. And the benefits that John spoke of are very advantageous, especially if you do a good job of managing your HSA, and maybe you put in a few extra dollars with every paycheck to fully fund your HSA. So we think it's a really good recruitment tool, and it's something that we're not looking to change through this process, but clearly we want to look and see if we can get a better value. So you're seeing a page full of numbers for the first time. So I'm not going to go over all of these. I just want to point out the story that's in these numbers. This is 6 years worth of experience. And we get charged currently a premium of $983 a month if you're a single insured, and $2,305 if you're a family insured. And a family is anything more than one person. Those dollars, about 77 to 80% of those dollars go into what's called our claim fund that pay our claims. The rest of those dollars, a little bit goes to overhead for our partner benefits provider. And the remainder of those dollars go to buy reinsurance. If you don't know what reinsurance is insuring the insurer against losses. And this is really important. If you're cheating and looking ahead at 2023, look at our reinsurance reimbursements for last year, $1.3 million, and compare that to every other year that came before it. So what happened, right? Reinsurance insures any of those 280 lives that are covered in our policy against any claim that goes over a loss limit of $75,000. So I know of a few stories because people share things, and I'm not going to share any of this because it's personal medical information, but when bad things happen, costs can really get out of hand. And that's the story behind that $1.3 million number. We had some bad stuff happen to people that really drove the costs up. But because we're in a health trust where there's a reinsurance, we don't have to pay all those claims ourselves. The reinsurer covers the borough for all those claims that go over $75K for those cases.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying without being direct about it. It makes a lot of sense. The reinsurance really helped out in this incident. Can I ask a little bit about the health trust? Does that allow you to participate in a larger pool? Is that what the trust actually does, or is it still within the set of 280 that we're talking about, or are we insured with other municipal governments that are also part of this pool?
We are insured with
Okay.
other municipal
Thanks
governments.
for the
I
clarification.
think that PIMIC has about 250
250 plus.
other
250 munis, so, okay, all right.
in that big pond.
Yeah,
We interact with those other 249 members in a little more removed way. And we also interact with our own internal claims experience. So if you look at the sheet, you can see how our premiums changed year over year. So some years our premiums went up. In 2020, the premiums went up about 5.7%. In 2022 and 2023, the premiums went down. That's because in our group, our 280, we had a very low claims experience. And when you have low claims fund experience, you get a refund. And that's what's different about being in the PIMIC trust than any other healthcare insured pool that we're marked. That's why we got to compare this apples to apples here when we're starting to look at this market. We need to not just look at the premium we're paying, but what is the net premium we're paying after we get our surplus back. If you recall from last year in our budget talks, we were talking about, oh, I didn't know how the health refund was going to look. We actually do now know how the health refund was going to look. I thought we were going to end up with zero. We ended up with $126,000 worth of a refund. So we budgeted the 5-year average of that refund, $275. And so we're a little short by $150,000. But in most years, we're doing better than that. I'm going to pause just for a second, just to make sure I'm not flooding too much information at you. And okay, so just two main points I wanted to make with this information in front of you is that when we go ahead and compare our health options to our current plan to other options, we're going to be focusing on the net premium, and we've averaged about a 15% refund, which translates, when I was a young boy at the age of 5. So you have to actually take 15% more or less off of those premium numbers to compare apples to apples. If you want to compare it to an offer from a open market healthcare source, and you get quoted a premium of $2,000, well, you got to come back and factor in the refund, and we're going to be able to do that and compare that for you all. And there is a relationship between lower claims experience and the refund. So we have a little bit of control over this, meaning insofar as we can scope wellness programs around our demographics, we can achieve better healthcare outcomes that directly affect our bottom line. If we go out and pay for insurance on the open market with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they keep the premium whether we do all the preventative care we're supposed to, or really bad things happen. We don't get any of this money back. So that's one thing I like about this financially, is that our performance is related directly to our experience, and we have a little bit of control over that. And we have a little bit of insight into that. We can also get claim fund reporting that has personal information removed, so we can identify where our claims are being spent on. You know, what kinds of conditions are people in that 280 group getting treated for, and we can design wellness programming around those things to help. So the typical things come up, like nutrition, exercise, it's very sunny and hot today, so being smart about being out in the sun. Some of us were recently down the shore, so it's not rocket science, but we can focus on that and build awareness around that. That'll help with our bottom line. And John's going to wrap up and just tell you what our game plan is between now and September, so you know what we're up to.
Thanks, Sean. So the plan next steps, we are going to be looking into other alternatives. It's not to say that we are going to go down the route of an alternative, but at least we're doing our due diligence and looking at other plans and other options. So in that voice, we did notify our current healthcare plan that through Benecon on June 25th that we were planning on terminating the plan. We have an amnesty period from June 30th until November 30th. Basically, it's our time to shop around, look at other plans, other options, and see whether or not that plan is any plan that's out there is going to be better than what we have currently. So one of the first things we're going to do is try to optimize our plan with Benecon, determine if there's anything we can do to streamline things, to make it more affordable without having to change plans. As Sean mentioned earlier, we have surveyed both unions and a lot of the non-union staff, and they're fairly happy with the plan as it stands currently, but we can always do a little bit better. So beyond that, we're going to be researching with other health trusts, such as Divot and other potential health trust plans, to determine whether or not they can offer us something that's going to be more lucrative for the borough, more beneficial for our employees. Also, again, as I mentioned, with having union employees, we do have union contracts that stipulate specific coverages that have to be maintained. And we don't want to deviate away from that or do anything that might upset the overall health and welfare of our employees. The third option, we are going to look at the open market. We're going to look at what's called BUCA. That's the 5 largest healthcare providers that are out there: Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare Group, which is who we're under currently, Cigna, Aetna, and Humana. And right now we have a 6-week plan in place through our broker, through Assured Partners. We're going to be looking at each one of these plans to determine which one would be best to bring back to council for approval, whether that be stay where we are or move forward with something else. And that's pretty much it. Are there any questions for me?
I think you answered some of them. So we're working with basically a partner to help us evaluate the plans. I know that there are search consultants out there to help with this, that know a lot more and they're much deeper knowledge than probably any of us could be. And I don't know if any of us want to specialize there, but it's good that you have hired a specialist to help out with this. The other question I had was, we've notified Benetcon that we're terminating the plan. I didn't know that we would actually go that far before we would RFP and look at other options. Is that something that's already in motion, but we would still include the incumbent in the RFP process? I think I also heard. Okay.
That's 100% correct.
Okay.
We are required to, and that's the insurance providers demand that we notify them before June 30th. So we kind of had our hands tied by the time limit. By notifying them, we do have that ability to rescind that at any point before November 30th. That timeline is actually tighter for me because we have open enrollment that's going to come up at the beginning of November. So we want to make sure we have a plan in place. So my plan is to come back to you in September with a proposed solution, whether stay in place or move forward. That way we have enough time to make arrangements and the employees are not caught off guard.
Sounds good. I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty tight plan in place. Could you do us one favor on the ACT committee? Could you just outline that plan in terms of the timing so we kind of understand your enrollment process, the RFP process, the selection process? There's a lot of pieces moving around, and I think it would be just good for us to have some
Absolutely.
insight into that. And also potentially the RFP letter or whatever you send out, if that's already drafted, that would be good to have, I think, somewhere for us to see, just so we have all the information also.
Absolutely.
And the providers that you'd mentioned that you're planning to include with your search partner assurance in the process, that would be great.
I'll make sure all of that happens.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Things like turning clothes.
As a member of the Wellness Committee, I can honestly agree with you wholeheartedly. And that is one of the many opportunities that we're going to address with Benetcon and see whether or not we can make some of those modifications. If we can't do it that way, then the Wellness Committee has already begun talks to find alternate solutions to that.
Thank you.
Problem? Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your
Have
time.
any questions from the public? Anybody in the audience? Okay. Seeing none, moving on to discussion item 3C, Transportation Committee. This was, actually think that this discussion item's been kicked around a couple times, and it's now actually a formal discussion item. Coming off of a few discussions around railroad restoration, the planned growth, potentially more than 5% in the next 5 years, population expansion, more urbanization, and the need for better circulation than we currently have, whether that's rail or includes rail or buses or shuttles or trolleys or whatever. There's definitely a need to understand what our need is, and I don't think we really have a full picture of it. We might not have a full picture of it until some of those new residents get here and, completely and fill up all those new buildings. But we shouldn't wait until then. We should actually probably form a committee to start looking into our future needs here in the borough, and that's where this item came from. I think it actually got kicked to us from Smart Growth. So I'll just open up the item for discussion. I know that Brian McGinnis is still probably not in attendance with us, but any thoughts, feelings?
Yes. I was at a committee with Downtown Westchester this morning, and this is not the first time this has come up, but this is the first thing that I think needs to happen is signage for what is currently available. Signage and just press, just get the word out there about what we actually already have. Because we have a lot. By no means is it everything, but if we can just get more awareness around even where a bus stop is, it's just sort of, there's a spot there and we're putting one bus shelter up, and that was difficult. But things like that need to be visible, friendly, have trash cans nearby. This is like a whole series of things just to be able to use the things that we already have in place. And the community, I think, would benefit a lot just by starting there. So, but there's a lot to be done.
Don't disagree with that. We know that there are transit services that Chesco provides already, some to some of our like handicap, elderly. SEPTA has a circulator that runs. I don't think it runs on a very tight schedule. But I think one of the main purposes of standing up a committee like this would be, one, to find out current awareness. We would have a number that we could attach to it, and then we could determine a goal to set in terms of how we would build awareness, or maybe we could help, or we could partner with, our county commissioners and helping with that effort. And also trying to determine current needs, and whether those current services and the awareness of those currencies fit the current needs, which I don't know that is true. And then ultimately, potentially some recommendations that would come out of this committee. So really kind of in a tight, short, not a permanent, but probably a temporary committee, just to find more information, in fact, finding around certainly current services and potential need for additional. There are different types of commuters. There are people that need circulation. There are people who need to get from town to town, and there are folks that move, from the surrounding area to the airport or a rail station. And we don't have any information on any of those commuters currently, or people in need of transit. So I think we really need to build some awareness in general around our transportation needs, because we've heard it over and over again. The future's not cars. The future's not parking. We already have issues there. Let's find a way to alleviate some of the pressure points on, driving and having cars and traffic. So I think we need to do our diligence and find out what our needs are. Great. So in terms of standing up a temporary committee and finding participants, what would be our next steps? Should we take this to full council work session, make this an agenda item to talk about? But I would think that this committee I'm for a recommendation to standing up this committee. I don't know. What are your thoughts? 3 to 1. Okay. So could we put
Sure.
that to,
Mr. Travis, Bernie Flynn.
yes, Bernie,
Good evening, team.
good evening.
Many years ago, the university came to the borough and asked the borough whether they could have a shuttle bus to transverse the entire borough, moving around professors and students at their leisure. For example, going to the shopping centers, going to the mall, going to the train station, and taking them various stops around the borough. The university was supposed to come back to borough council after they had this thing up and running and tell the borough how our senior citizens and citizens of the borough could use this free shuttle that runs around various aspects of the borough. The biggest thing was actually insurance. The university did not know how they could allow our residents to get on and off of the shuttle bus, and it fell by the wayside. So the university actually has quite a few shuttle buses running around up and down the streets of the borough, picking up students and professors. And the university has never come back to the borough and offered us the option of putting our people, residents, on their shuttle buses.
Actually, yes, the WCU does have at least one shuttle that goes up Walnut Street to, I believe, a couple points of interest, like the Giant nearby, maybe the train station. I don't know if that's the truth or not. I have not seen the route recently, but I do remember the proposal. I do remember it being open to everyone when that bus looked like a yellow school bus. Now that bus is painted purple with a ram on it, I believe,
Yes.
and does not seem available. And if what you're saying is true based on insurance, it is not available. So therefore, we still have what I would say a gap for residents to circulate.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that what we should probably do is ask the university to join into the conversation for transportation, because they're currently doing it very effectively in the borough right now. And the residents, the university never came back to us to tell us what our options were. As a side note, they said it was insurance, but we never had a formal discussion with the university.
Are you proposing that the university have a seat at this committee?
I would think so, yeah, because they're transversing the borough every day, many times a day.
Okay. Don Edwards has a question.
It sounds like needs an intermodal transportation study. It's something that, like the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission or one of those types, we did one in Phoenixville way back, but it looks at all the different types of available transportation. And but anyway, what you were describing sounds like that might be something you've done. I don't know if the borough's ever done one of those before, so it might be like the first time, or it might be an update of what was done in the past. So.
We have never done it. Around the borough used to be a thing called Scoot, SCOT, SCOT, or it could be two O's. And we were asked to contribute to it. And the next thing that happened, it kind of disappeared. And then Chesco took up the those little minivans that drive around the various people, like Mr. Travis said, helping the senior citizens and disabled in the borough. But the university was supposed to come back to the borough and offer us a provision to join their unit. And I think it would be good to have them at the table, since the other time last week, Mr. Davenport said he really wanted to work with the borough to be a better partner.
If there's interest from Sean and council, I'd be willing to. Okay, put my mouth right up against it. If there's interest, I could reach out and see from DVRPC or whatever other PennDOT, whatever other organization would be interested in doing this kind of a study. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we were thinking is we would do what you said was an intermodal transportation study.
yeah,
Obviously, we're at the very beginning stages of determining who the stakeholder set is at this
Right.
point.
typically it's regional, so
Yeah.
it would be everybody, the university, the borough, the neighboring communities. So it would be all of that.
I do know that the county did quite a bit of work with SEPTA to do on-demand busing, and that's in place. But nobody knows. That's my concern, is that people don't even know what is currently available, which a study would show.
Right.
Like, yes, let's go figure out what's here, figure out what options we have, and then tell everybody what is going on and how they can use it.
I don't think it hurts for me to just reach out and see what's available, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
That'd be great. Thank you, Don. So I think 2-0, we'd like to move this to discussion to
Yeah,
work session.
may I suggest that a couple decisions be thought through, and I know you're a big fan of having a pre-read, something to react to. If you look at section 338 of our code, administrative code, there's a list of all of the borough's advisory boards and commissions. This committee would not be an administrative board and commission. It wouldn't have any administrative function like the civil service or zoning hearing board. It would be an advisory one. So we would make a decision about whether it's a committee built for a very specific time-defined purpose. And if it is, then it's an ad hoc committee. And then it's just a matter of spelling out the membership and what the powers and duties and responsibilities of the committee are. And that's just a bullet list of, the conversation could start with 5, 6, or 7 bullet points, and then maybe take that document to a work session.
Yeah, I could start something. I mean, I think I have a sense for what we discussed and what we need, and just other discussions that we've had in the past, and start drafting that. That would be good to tee up. Thanks for the suggestion, Sean. All right. Any comments or questions or concerns from the public and the tenants tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the discussion item 3D, meeting agenda setting and management. This is actually a follow-up item that was introduced, I think, back in May. It was on the heels of a discussion we were having about Lot 10, the growers market, affordable housing, a very complex, multi-layered conversation that had some people very for and very against. And we were not at the point where we were even able to make an informed decision on this topic. And we want to find a better way to manage meetings and set agendas before we upset a bunch of people, including ourselves. And obviously, we want to guard our own reputations and credibility and be fully informed and aware of topics, especially of this caliber, that come up before we go to vote. And it did not feel like it was appropriate, or we went through the proper channels or the proper process. So the follow-up item here, I think, Sean, was that you were going to evaluate Robert's Rules of Order, some examples of how we introduce topics that might be in our long-term plan, might be off the long-term plan, but also may involve complexities for, like multiple stakeholders, perhaps committees that should have seen a plan before it was presented, so on and so forth. So I'm going to just kick that back to you and see if you have any recommendations.
And I think that that was a great point. When I came into the meeting in May, I didn't realize that we were talking about agenda management, and that's a great place to start. And so what we've done since then is we continue to follow the administrative code. We have to publish our agendas 3 days before the meeting takes place, 3 business days before the meeting takes place. But we added some layers to this process where we're getting them done a little bit sooner, and we're sending them to the committee chairpersons to review and give us feedback before this publication date. I have really liked how that's gone in June and July. I think that's a great improvement. The other thing that we talked about was that there would be for lack of a better word, like an approval train on the agenda, an expectation that things that pop up in other business that don't make it to the agenda can't be voted on, and they get moved to the next month's discussion agenda. And things that are discussed on the discussion agenda aren't necessarily voted on and taken action. We have a month to discuss them before we take them and put them under action item on our committee agendas. That's worked 85% of the time for us so far. I think the one exception that keeps coming up is that sometimes staff needs to get something done that's administrative in nature, like we need a grant resolution approved. So we might bring it to your attention as an action item without moving it through discussion and action. That makes more sense. So I really like these improvements to the agenda management. It slows things down a little bit. And when we have things that are larger and we want to discuss, we at least have a couple touches at the committee level before we take a vote on it and do something.
So are you suggesting that we do adopt the recommendation that I think we had discussed at one point about adding items that are particularly big and hairy and multi-layered complex, could touch a lot of different stakeholders, to a new business item in the committee to discuss in the work session, but not use this 3-day time process to basically turn it to a vote? I don't know that everything has followed that. Maybe it's 85%, but the business as usual stuff is not typically the problem. It's the, hey, we need to terminate a lease. We need to perhaps look at this collective bargaining agreement again, or we need to consider action against something. And maybe some of those are timely and some of them need to have a little bit more of a head start. So I'm still a little bit confused as how we would use the new business, in what form, whether it would be in the work session, in the committee itself, or how we would not necessarily delay the process, because that's not really what we would do. The whole goal would be to actually make the process more efficient by having some awareness of the general public that a topic is coming, not necessarily that we're voting on a decision and that's when they become aware. So I just wanted to get clarification there.
I would say at the work session, there could be under discussion / new business. I think of those two things as synonymous in this context. So if there was something to be discussed at the work session, that might come up organically from council. But if it's on a discussion item at the work session, it's not something council's going to vote on, take action on that night. And then that meeting, council can make a decision whether the committee can talk about it more, or it can be moved again to maybe next month's action. So at least you're getting some kind of a time buffer between things that need to be discussed, so that we're not rushing to big decisions all at once. Does that make sense?
It makes sense the way you're explaining it. I'm just wondering maybe if it's a matter of semantics and wording and placement of those discussion items, if they're being introduced as new business. I think maybe we should be using, because new business is part of Robert's Rules of Order. Typically, it's already been, it's not been discussed yet. It's being introduced. And so the way that I kind of saw this working is, a new business item gets introduced to an agenda for a committee. It does get discussed, but it's not old business that's being discussed. It's new business, right? So it's the first time somebody's seeing it, new baby. And then it could potentially go to discussion in the work session as this is still an introduced new topic. But it shouldn't give, I think we just need to clarify prioritization and weight of the topic. And I don't think, I mean, sometimes these items get clumped together with approving an invoice, and it's just not the same. Potentially, we would change where transportation committee would be as a discussion item into new business, not other business. Other business would come up. And I'm just trying to follow Robert's Rules of Orders as I've seen it used in other formats.
I'm going to try again, I think. So discussion, under discussion items, so you have the
So it would be it would be a new item that we would be adding. So right now we have 5 bullets here. So we have action items. But so typically the way Robert's Rules of Order works is you discuss old business first, you take care of old business if you have action on it, then you introduce new business at the end.
Oh, you're worried about the placement. You want it after action items.
Because it's confusing to the public. When they see the agenda, it's also confusing to the public. It's just a reorder of things. It's not necessarily, I think it would help. Well, it would help if we all understood what I'm saying right now, but typically old business gets handled first. Some of that old business, for instance, the health care we've talked about multiple times. We asked for an RFP earlier in the year. We're discussing it. We still haven't made a decision on it. That will become an action item at some point. But if we had another item that was being introduced for the first time, we could either change this title from other business to new business. So it's clear that it's something that's being introduced for the first time.
Leave other business there.
Okay. But maybe we use it instead of skipping over it because we never really have any new business unless it's something that Sean just mentioned. We needed to add something to get it quickly approved, but that might be business as usual. That is absolutely correct. So if we had, so the point is if we finished all of our old business, including the action items that are currently here, which old business was the only action item here is to approve last month's meeting minutes, then we would have an item here for new business, which this new transportation committee that we just discussed would be discussed if we change the format, the agenda, the order, the prioritization, the way that we introduce new topics into the work session. So it doesn't look like we're voting on something right away. Does that make sense yet?
The only thing that is hanging me up is that we vote on the action items, and that's like, I don't want to go back to the non-voting things.
Okay.
Would you be bothered if we put the new items under discussion? So if it were 4 rather than 5.
I would be okay if we had something called new business and we can discuss with the rest of the committee. I think there's a need to separate old and new.
I hear the need.
Yeah.
I just, it's just that this is confusing to me only because this is how we've done it, which I don't want to do it because that's how we've done it.
Right.
But, you know, there is sort of a cadence to these meetings where we vote on these things towards the end. That's the end is the voting things.
Right.
That's my only like little hang up.
Except it's not because we have other business after action items.
the other business, if there is other business, it's almost always either it's some completely
Yeah.
other thing, which I like that being there because sometimes it's actually really interesting and important, but that's like it's the space that people know about and they use when they need it.
Right. Do you see the need to separate new and old though?
I like separating the new and the old. I like that a lot.
Okay.
I just want the action items after just because that's.
Can we agree to at least move forward with maybe carving out a place that's very clearly communicating that we're introducing a new agenda item? These are all public meetings,
I like
trying to avoid, we're trying to create order, not what we've had before in the past by introducing something. That's all I'm trying to do.
I like that very much. I
Okay.
just this is nitpicky what I'm
It,
complaining about.
it could get to Nick, but you know what? You could be right. So why don't is it okay to take this item and have a discussion about new business being kind
Absolutely.
of carved? Okay, great. All right, so we would like to move this to discussion, Sean, to the work session to talk about reordering some of the old items, which again, if everybody's read through Robert's rules and understands it, that's typically how it's formatted. And then new at some point later after old business is finished, right?
Mhm.
And then we can figure out the details of all this later, but I do think that would help at least alleviate some of the pressure that we see sometimes when we talk about things that could set us up for.
One of my goals in doing this would be to clarify what things are the elected body taking action on and what things is the elected body discussing this in preparation maybe for taking action at a following month or recommending for more research at a committee. I think that would really help us out a lot too.
And that is actually the entire intention of all this discussion. So yes, that would be very helpful, I think.
That's also why I want those two closer together. I feel like the discussion, we have to discuss these things and the action items for the most part end up being yes or no. Not always, but I think they.
Okay. All right, so move it to the work session. Okay. Ann, I saw your hand up. Did we satisfy your question or do you really want to get dragged through the mud here in this one? All right.
I will just say that what just happened here is probably not what you want to send to work session because it's going to happen there at work session only with 7 of you. So my suggestion would be that if first of all, the things you have under discussion items here are mainly like the first 3, well, 2 are informational items. It's somebody making a presentation or whatever that, the important thing for the public is to understand what's going to be on the agenda, which is required by law, and that things don't pop up and then automatically get thrown to council. And then there's this big hubbub, which is what you're all trying to avoid. What I would suggest before you send this to discussion in council is that you give whoever wants to give an idea of what this would look like with definitions. So what is it that we mean by an informational item? What is it that we mean by a new business discussion item? What is it we mean by old business? So what is it that you mean by that? Give it to Mr. Metric and have him put out, okay, here are some samples before it goes, because everybody needs a chance to think about it. And unfortunately, during the work session, that's really not the best thinking that occurs because you're trying to get things done. Just my suggestion.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic suggestion. So we'll mock something up. We might just talk about it at a high level and then come back to it because I think it's still going to be, right now we would be introducing this as a new business item with 3 days to 4 days to talk about it. So, but very good suggestion. Thank you for the comments. Anybody else in the audience have a comment, suggestion, concern? Okay, we'll move on to number 4, action items. Approve May 2024 meeting minutes. There was actually no, or June 2024 meeting minutes. We did not have a meeting, so we do not have minutes to approve. We can move on to other business. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have to approve May, and we do have the May minutes. And did you see any issues with May? Okay, we didn't have really anything contentious in May. And then, so we'll move on to other business. Any other business? Any questions, comments, other business from the public? 6:43 p.m. Thank you.